This podcast is brought to you by Ziva, Functional Training Institute's exclusive equipment partner. Engineered for purpose and performance, Ziva's elite equipment supports every rep, every move, and every goal. It's Tarek, the host of the Purpose-Driven Movement podcast. In this session, I discuss physical transformation from the inside out with none other than Whitney Jones, 3 times Miss Olympia. She's got an incredible story to tell. She got into the sport at age 35, and there are some profound lessons in how to never give up and never give in to doubt, how to overcome your fears, and really some really amazing mindsets that will enable you to thrive and get out of the rut. And it's all about understanding that, even if we set a desired outcome, the process is more powerful than that outcome itself. So stay tuned for this amazing success story and the lessons that can help inspire you. Check out the Functional Training Institute's latest offer, which is 15% off of any of our online training courses. Simply go to functionaltraininginstitute.com and input PDM15 at cart checkout. Hello, folks. Welcome to another wonderful episode on the Purpose-Driven Movement podcast. Had the great privilege earlier this year of meeting Whitney Jones at the Genius Network event, and we really clicked. And I loved hearing about Whitney's story, really powerful and profound, especially in the health, fitness, wellness space, which is my specialization, and certainly would love to learn more about Whitney's story. So welcome to the show, Whitney.
Thanks so much. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I know. We had some challenges getting here, but here we are. You all the way from Arizona, me from Thailand. But, it's a magic what the online world can do for us. So we're going to dive into some specifics, but how are you doing anyway?
Doing great. It's great weather right now in Arizona. So it's the springtime, but it starts getting hot in about a month or two. And man, if you're not enjoying it now, then you don't deserve it, because the summer months, we get up to about 120. And even though it's a dry heat, it's still hot. So I'm loving it right now. Doors open. I'm enjoying it. And life is good. No complaints for me.
Good on you. Yeah, you always got a wonderful smile, and certainly you're a wonderful entrepreneur too. And we'll talk about some of the stuff that you've got going on. Firstly, for the listeners, if you could talk a little bit about your powerful story. It really touched my heart, because I think people are inspired by story, and your transformation is just incredible. So over to you, Whitney.
Well, thanks. So basically growing up, I had 2 older brothers. I was the young little sister who always wanted to just be hanging around with them. So in order to do that and hang with 2 older brothers, I was a total tomboy. I was into every sport I could possibly do and loved it. I just loved to be active. I loved challenges. Fast forward, I was in sports in high school, college. And then as I got older, I just kind of got bored. It's like you went to university, graduated, was in the real world with a real job. And I missed out on the joy of having that physical challenge. So I was at a gym, at one of the gyms, just getting a workout in, overheard this conversation. Long story short, some guy challenged me to do a competition. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I was like, yeah, because he said, there's no way you could do it. And I thought, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm going to do it. And that's what actually got me into the sport of bodybuilding. Now, bodybuilding, everyone thinks Arnold Schwarzenegger and that's the image and flexing on stage. So I am in this sport, but I don't get on stage and flex. I do the division. It's called fitness. Very generic title for my division. But my division is the one where you get on stage, you do a 2-minute routine, dancing, choreography, backflips, and I do break dancing. So that's the category I compete in. I never get on stage and flex. Now, they do judge our physique, and you have to be in shape, but it's more the performance element, and that's what I love. I had no experience, though, none whatsoever, but I loved the challenge. It's like Olympia is the big title. That's what Arnold won many, many times in a row. And long story short, this girl who got started late in the sport, I was mid-30s. I had 2 boys at this time. So I was a mom. I was a single mom. And they were young, balancing my companies that I was running at the time. And I just took on this goal for the sport. I ended up making it to the Olympia, going pro before that, making it to the Olympia, couple years later, climbing up in the ranks, and then I win the world championship title. And it's like, what is going on? But it shows the power of the mind. And when you really set that goal and you do whatever is in your wheelhouse to get there, and you have the drive, the grit, the tenacity, and the belief, crazy things can happen. And I'm an example of that. I went on to win 3 of the titles and 3 Olympia titles. I was the first mom ever to win the title. So that's something I'm very, very proud of. And, it's just been a crazy journey, primarily because this wasn't something I sought out as a goal when I was a young girl. I didn't have the training and the background and the years of gymnastics and training like all the girls I was competing against. I was a lot older than all of the girls that I was competing against. And just being kind of a daredevil child growing up, I had had many, many injuries. Now, granted, as I got into this sport, I ended up having a lot more injuries because it is kind of a daredevil. It's an extreme sport. We're getting our physiques into peak conditioning, leaning down. You're trying to sculpt a piece of art with your body. Yet, for our division, we have to then do a 2-minute routine, explosive, entertaining, powerful, and that's hard. So injuries happen. I've broken literally almost every bone in my body. I've had 18 surgeries to date. But guess what? I'm still alive, kicking, moving, shaking, and I can continue to move. I just don't want to stop. I love the drive. I love the challenge, obviously within reason, but it's because I love that mindset, that challenge of conquering new goals. And so that's the story that I've kind of been able to fortunately have a platform to share. And it hasn't been easy, but I'm telling you, the biggest thing that I always go back to is it does not matter what you want in your personal life, your professional life, your career. If you're as an athlete even, if you really set your goals and your focus and you have true deep down belief in yourself, you can achieve it. You just have to have those things all come together. And it is a recipe and it takes work, and you have to put in the work every day, not just on your body, not just on research, not just on your career development. You have to do the work in your mind in order to get there. And that's what I've found to be 100% my most powerful tool and what I try to motivate and encourage others to really tap into.
Yeah, very profound. And thank you for sharing that, Whitney. You're a walking example of just that. And incredibly, at the age of, 35 or so, what was it like prior to then? Did you have a routine of training or, obviously there was this catalyst for you, which was that daring, that you took up, right? And you said, yes, I'm going to do this. But just sort of leading up to that, kind of what was life like for you, in terms of your physical, your health and so forth?
I was always active. I loved the gym, and not just the gym, but just anything. So for years I did endurance type events, marathons, triathlons. I loved just having a new challenge. I get bored easily. And I just liked that feeling of, pushing yourself to a limit, sweat, your heart racing, like just really challenging yourself. But I will say there was one incident that really kind of was a pivot point in my life. I was pregnant with my second child and there were some complications and I was put on bed rest. I ended up being on bed rest for 3.5 months, which for someone like me who's super active, it was difficult. And it wasn't just bed rest, just sit. Like I had to lay flat. I couldn't eat. I could lift my chin up, but I couldn't sit up like in a 90-degree angle or I would have full-blown contractions. So I was literally bedridden, lay flat on my back for 3.5 months, in and out of the hospital in order to get the contractions to stop. And the reason that was such a profound period in my life is because I knew this was temporary. I knew, fingers crossed that I was going to have a healthy baby boy, which fortunately I did. But it made me realize how everyone takes the ability to move and the ability to be active for granted. And you sometimes don't realize that until it's taken from you. And in many cases, it's taken and there's not an option to get it back. Well, I realized this was a temporary setback for me. I was just on bed rest because of a pregnancy complication, but obviously you have the baby and then you're fine. And I thought, this is my purpose. I need to do something with this knowledge. I need to create my life's path to encourage people never take the ability to move and the ability to be active. Don't take your health for granted because there's going to be a point that you have to focus on it. In some instances, it's not going to be that you can ever go back to that life that you loved. So appreciate it now. So that was one of the things, being that I was always active, I loved it. I craved it. I didn't realize how awful life was when it's all taken away. And, again, we get busy with life and our careers and family, and we forget to take care of ourselves, or we forget the ability that we have to do something about it. And the benefits of movement, the benefits of being active, like what it does for us mentally, cognitively, energy, all these things just by being active. And it doesn't mean going to extremes. It doesn't mean, go run 3 miles a day. It can be as simple as going for a bike ride around the neighborhood, a simple walk around the block, going for a swim in your pool. It can be anything. It's just make sure to move. The ability to move, never take it for granted. So that was a part for me that I felt, all right, I completely switched careers. I worked for an ad agency and a marketing company, completely quit my job, went and got a job as a personal trainer at a local gym, and just did a massive pivot and knew this is my purpose. It was just such a strong feeling that I knew this was what I needed to do with my life from this point on.
Very powerful. It's like you took that conviction and I went with it. And, there's that whole kind of notion of what gratitude is, and it's kind of appreciating what has been missing. And I remember when I quarantined for the first time, I was not able to get out of my hotel room for 6 days. And when I went out to absorb the sun, I was like, my goodness, the shining rays of energy and light. So it's interesting that scenario where that was taken away from you, your ability to move and be stuck in that sort of position, that prone position. So quite amazing how that then propelled you into a new career. And there are many, many people who have had such profound stories. I have had a similar situation whereby I had an injury, and that sort of propelled me to appreciate movement and then get into the world of fitness that way. So thank you for sharing that, Whitney. Now, our topic for today is the power of physical transformation from the inside out. So we've kind of already started to get into this. And from your story, you were then able to become a successful entrepreneur. So taking these lessons and becoming an incredible champion, with 3 world titles. How did you then take those lessons and those wins, into the business world?
So the thing is, it's a matter of really learning to do things right, growing strategically, building strategically. So for me, I always wanted to set achievable goals that were measurable. So, again, one of my first businesses that I opened was opening up a gym. From there, there was the ability that I saw that online training was a massive platform. So I created another company and wanted to do online training for athletes all over the world, as well as lifestyle clients. Well, then it was like, okay, what can I do now? I opened up a fitness apparel line. And then as an athlete competing myself, I became a promoter, and I host massive events here in Arizona for amateur and pro athletes who want to do the exact same sport, all the divisions. But what I found is it's really learning everything you can before you completely dive in. You've got to be strategic in your process. And if you really want something, again, it's like if you want to open up this business, if you want to have this physique, if you want to have this incredible relationship, you have to be able to look at the big picture, which means really kind of reflecting on yourself a lot too and going, where can I improve? What am I doing wrong? Where do I need to level up? Where do I need further education? Where do I need to meet in the middle? So it's a constant evaluation of yourself as well as your surroundings, as well as your environment, the people you're working with, so that you can truly set yourself up to succeed. And then where I found the biggest struggle for most people, now whether it's personal transformation or professional transformation and really trying to create change and level up, it's that setback. We're all going to have them. What do you do when that happens? Does everything crumble? Or do you look at that as everything that happens can be a lesson, and it can be an opportunity to propel you higher, greater, do more. So that's a big mindset shift of going, all right, if I know challenges are going to come, if I know this isn't going to be easy, number one, that's always a sure sign it'll be worth it. Number two is to expect all of these obstacles are going to come your way. If you expect it, when they come, it's way easier to handle. And then it makes it a little bit easier, especially if it's not near as bad as you thought it would be. So again, you take a physical transformation. People's bodies don't change overnight. You don't get the physique you want overnight. But you've got to be able to take those small steps, put in the work every single day, and then celebrate milestones, celebrate your success so that you can take a look at yourself and pat yourself on the back and be like, all right, I'm doing it. This is working. And seeing these measurable changes in the process. Same thing with building a business. Where are your benchmarks to celebrate? Are you hitting certain goals and then going, okay, I'm leveling up with each and every step? It's the same process of going, okay, I want to celebrate. I want to do good. I'm staying focused on my goal. Boom, 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 setback. That's all right. Keep climbing, keep going, keep moving forward. Because otherwise, what do? You stay there, status quo. You're not growing. You're not challenging yourself. You're not learning. That's boring. And that's where regret takes place. So if you're not constantly challenging yourself to level up, you're wasting time.
Yeah, it sounds like, it's incredible lessons there and insights, and that sort of reflexive learning is an important one that you mentioned earlier. Reflect often is what I often say, because, if you, let's say journaling is one strategy, but simply just taking the time out, right? A few minutes in the day to kind of detach from the world, if you like, of technology and so forth. And as you say, be able to kind of go, well, it's a good day and it's a good day for these reasons. And that practice of gratitude and that self-reflexivity is important. The other lesson here that you've shared is it's the process over the outcome, or the journey, that is pivotal, right? So I think that's another one. Carol Dweck talks about that. So the understanding that there are milestones, like you said, or celebrate those small victories along the way, because there are going to be setbacks. That's crucial. So, if you take a journey, it's not always a linear path, right? You need to pivot left or deviate right or go up, and sometimes you're going to go down and then get back up. So, I think these are important for the listeners, because if whatever you're pursuing, there's this desired outcome, there's this important process to understand. And then the third thing is the expectations that you talked about, and managing those, and just sort of not being negative, I suppose, about it, right? It's still having a positive mindset, but going, well, how do we then build resilience through setbacks? So everything is about a building up. And I wanted to sort of summarize that, because these are such important lessons. The other insight that you talked about earlier is you're very competitive. That evidently comes across. Not everyone is, right? And so you made an important point that whether it is competing for a world title in any sport or event, or it could be like, as you said earlier, taking the dog around the block a few times and then building that up, or then maybe at some point going, yeah, I might do that marathon, or I might do that fun run and that triathlon. So again, for the listeners, it's whatever degree that you're wanting to pursue this goal, it's what overrides this is momentum, is keep moving, keep moving. Sometimes, there are going to be these severe setbacks that you shared in your story, but how do we overcome that? And so there's lots of really good stuff there, Whitney. Did you want to add anything else on that, just as I sort of summarized?
I will say, because I am extremely competitive, one thing I'll say, and it was some friends that actually pointed it out. I am so competitive with myself. And I really didn't realize that, because growing up, I was competitive as an athlete against my teammate in a race. Like, it was always me against them. What I've found is, as I got older, I wanted to, and I now, once this was pointed out to me early on in my adult life, when I got into this sport, I wasn't competing against anyone. It's a subjective sport. So this isn't a sport where it's a race, there's a finish line, and you can tell who crossed it first. This is subjective. I liked that because I got to choose if I won or not. And I was the one who had to be competitive against myself. And so I had this ritual before I ever stepped on the stage. Every show, there's always the stairs to walk up to the stage. And at the bottom of the step, I would go, did I win or not? And I would rate myself on a level of 1 to 10 on several aspects. And sure enough, clearly, I didn't win every time. And there were 3 shows that I remember vividly that I really failed myself in regards to my training, my dedication to my posing, my rituals of my choreography practice and bringing in new skills, my diet, my cardio. There were so many elements. And did I fail? Because it didn't matter at the end of the day what the judges gave me. I didn't care if I got first place or last place. And I can genuinely say that. I honestly think that's why I ended up winning, because I wasn't there to get the judges' validation. I loved the challenge. I loved the competition. I'll be honest, yes, winning a world title was great, but one of my most favorite shows was actually when I lost. I was defending my title. I had already won 2 back-to-back titles, and I lost my title. That was my biggest win in my entire career for many personal reasons going into the show. I loved the routine, my physique, everything was on point. The judges didn't give me the win that year. To me, that year, 2020, was my most favorite, my best and biggest win. I tell that story a lot because it was never for the judges to determine whether or not I won. I chose. So that's what I think is important. It's definitely, to be competitive, it helps give that drive, but you got to be able to go, who are you competing against?
Attention fitness professionals worldwide. Idea World, the premier global fitness convention, is coming to California, USA this July 17th to 19th. This is your opportunity to earn up to 20 CEC hours from internationally recognized educators while connecting with the industry's most passionate professionals. The Idea World Fitness and Nutrition Expo runs alongside the convention and is completely free and open to the public, featuring cutting-edge gear, technology and nutrition products from leading global brands. Don't miss this career-defining event. Register now at ideafit.com/world and use code PDM25 for a special discount on full registration.
And if you're competing against yourself, that is the best. Because guess what? That forces you to really push harder, do better, be better. When you're competing against someone else, if they start slacking, it allows you to slack. But when it's you that has to look at yourself in the mirror and honestly answer, did I give this goal my all? It's pretty hard when you have to admit to yourself that you didn't and you failed yourself and you knowingly failed yourself. Life gets in the way sometimes and that's okay. But when you chose to skip that workout, or you chose to finish early, or you missed your routine stretching day, those are all fails. No one's forcing me to compete. No one's holding a gun to my head. This was my choice. If I'm going to commit, fulfill your end of the deal, be competitive against yourself to finish your goal. And in that aspect, you can't lose. Even on the shows that I didn't win, I won in the aspect that I was able to look back and go, do better, Whitney. You set this goal. Either do it or don't. If you're not going to give it your all, don't do this. And I didn't like that. I didn't want to sit with that. So I feel like if you are an athlete and you're competitive, find something that drives you to do better and be better.
That's awesome. Now, the whole adage, give it your best shot. So true, isn't it? We look at those and sometimes we maybe not in the right frame of mind, or it's not that right time for us to kind of, be hit by how powerful, that is in itself. So that's a great lesson there. Now, if we wind back when you were given the invitation to compete and you took that on board, and of course, your mindset would have been, yes, I'm going to go for it because you're going to compete against yourself. You know that you can do it. So as you've competed and you sort of won these titles, what were the main transformations? Obviously, physically, there was that. But did you find that it evolved into something even more deeper for you in terms of what you got out of the process?
Definitely. I'd say, so I have a clothing line called Fearless. And for me, growing up, we always had that fear. So it's like when you're a child, it's what do you want to be when you grow up? And we come up with outlandish ideas and we dream so big. And then as we get older, society, friends, family, no, you can't do that. And they tell us why we can't achieve those dreams or why we can't do something. Well, what that does is it plants this fear in us as human beings. And fear can be the biggest deterrent of all of your goals and dreams in life. And so I realized, earlier in my adult life that I had all these fun ideas or things I wanted to achieve. And it was like, oh, but I don't want to fail. And so fear to me was something that I ended up deciding, I'm going to just take this head on. Again, I got into a sport I have no experience doing. I wasn't a gymnast growing up. So I get into this sport where you got to do all these gymnastics tricks and skills. And I'm like, what? Okay. Now I knew I was a daredevil. So I was like, I want to brace this fear and do things safely, but I want to try things. And if I'm going to learn and I'm going to test myself, then you got to embrace the fear. That's one thing that helped me, not just as an athlete, but as a mom, as a business leader, as managing my teams, taking on risks in business endeavors, being able to look at it and break down, okay, where is my fear? What is it that I'm really afraid of? And I would physically write it down. And then I would think, what is the worst case scenario? What would happen if the worst case scenario? How would I feel? What would happen to the people around me? Would that change the way people perceive me? Once you break it all down, it's always pretty silly. The one thing it's not is like if you're doing crazy daredevilish risks and skills, which I did do some of those too, and those all didn't always work out. But when you look at what it is that's scaring you, that's holding you back, that is this massive roadblock from you stepping over that line and getting to where you want to go, it's the one thing that you can look at and go, okay, it's really not that bad. And then you got to think, what if things worked out? So yeah, look at what if it didn't work out, worst case scenario, but what is the best case scenario? What if it did work out? What if that risk you took, what if that thing you're facing that's so fearful actually worked out? Perfect. Well, then it starts going, yeah, I don't want to live in this what if world. I'm going to do it. So it's a process of talking your brain through the stages of fear. And it's actually a big part of what, I wrote my book, When Broken, which you see kind of behind me. And that has multi-purpose. Obviously, I've broken a lot and I've won, but it's not just about breaking bones in your body. It's about breaking your spirit. It's about having these setbacks personally, professionally. How do you win when you're broken? Well, there's a big part in here about fear, because when you learn to embrace fear the proper way, you're unstoppable. And the whole philosophy behind When Broken is there's people in life that are just going to survive, and there's people who truly thrive. What's the difference between these two? Well, the people who are thriving, they've mastered the art to win broken. And the truth is, we're all a little broken. Once you realize it's a level playing field now, all right, now I want to be the one to really push forward and see what I'm capable of and see how I can level up in all the areas of my life. And facing the fear is one of the biggest things you've got to conquer.
Embrace the fear, and just the title of your book, When Broken, is just incredible, because it's not some sort of whimsical or fancy, here's the win, here's the victory. As we talked about earlier, there are going to be those challenges. You're going to fall down and maybe fall hard. So we'll put a link in there for those to access, to be able to buy that book, and a few other things that certainly will add to the show notes. And so another thing I wanted to discuss is kind of, you switched to being an athlete to being a coach and have inspired many others to compete and certainly overcome their fears. And how has that perspective been for you, like in terms of coaching people into this space? And what is your main focus, when you're taking the athletes through the physical transformation into competition?
So I loved it. The one thing that I love the most about being a coach, it helps you in your personal life. It helps you as an athlete, because when you're spitting out great advice, there's a lot of us who can give amazing advice. Following it is a different story, right? But when you're counseling people and you're coaching and mentoring them in an aspect of life that you're currently doing as well, it really brings it to life. So everyone has mentors, or they should, in my opinion. Doesn't matter if you're the most successful business person, we always have mentors. I obviously have done very well in my sport. I have different mentors and coaches who've guided me too. Even though I'm coaching people, I need coaching. So, it's one thing to be able to hear it, but then when you have to verbalize it and teach others those same principles, those same practices, it makes it even more real for yourself. And then guess what? When your own clients are listening to your advice, and then it becomes your turn to walk the walk and talk the talk, it's so powerful to go, okay, I need to do what I've been telling my clients to do all these years. And I loved that accountability of what would I want my client to do? Again, if I'm struggling with the strength that I'm feeling that day, or a mental issue, or, just willpower, whatever it is I'm struggling with, I would think, what would I want my client to do? And then I would do that. And so that was an easier way to take your own advice. But I loved more than the physical transformation, because, if you've been coaching for a while, that part's easy. It really is. Like, you can put them on a diet nutrition plan, work out their hormones. All of that becomes pretty easy once you get it down to a science. I loved the internal transformation, where you get someone who may struggle with confidence. They don't even see what we as a coach see within them, and being able to pull that out, seeing their life change, seeing their happiness, seeing how they show up for themselves, for their families, how they walk into a room or walk into a meeting at their company. It changes everything when they feel strong, when they feel powerful, when they feel confident, when they are proud of the discipline that they've put into their own transformation. Those things have such a profound effect. That's what I loved about coaching. far more than looking at the art side of it and sculpting a body. It was looking at how you elevated and changed their life for the better and improved the life of all those people around them, their loved ones, their families, their coworkers. The changes that they made have such a ripple effect. And knowing as a coach, I played a role in that. It's one of the most rewarding things that you can do, at least I feel, in the fitness industry, is mentoring and guiding people to help them realize their greatness and helping them truly step into their excellence.
Yeah, totally. And that's the point of, this whole message here is an inside out transformation. But sometimes it's the pursuit is a physical goal, for example. Yeah. And then again, along the way, it's like, wow, I'm feeling more confident, in the meetings, or I'm just feeling more energetic. And so I'm feeling more courageous, perhaps, like you alluded to earlier. There's a clarity around all of a sudden you can make better decisions. And there are so many beautiful things that come out of actually this pursuit of a physical transformation, for example. And so that's interesting, isn't it? Like, not, I suppose, all the time are we aware that what we're seeking actually isn't the thing in the first place. It's until we go through that journey, and then upon reflection. So I think that's a real crucial part is the coaching mastery, or at least taking yourself out of your own first person perspective and then going, well, how and why is the client, going through these struggles? Doesn't mean that we need to internalize it as such, but it's these things like mentoring, counseling, maybe just listening rather than giving advice. That's sometimes we just need to be quiet because, it's let the client do the work. The client in the end does the work, and we just facilitate and be the guide by their side as coaches. So, you've had all of these different perspectives, and now you've become a successful entrepreneur. What is next for you, Whitney? And what's the next challenge or, milestone?
Well, so I launched my book in January. So literally just a few months ago, I've been doing book signings. The one thing I do love is I love mentorship. I love speaking. So I've been asked to be a keynote speaking on corporate events, on big, masterminds, also talking to youth, to athletes. So that's been a big push for me this year, is really focusing on spreading my word. One of the best things about having a title and having this hook of, oh, look at what I've accomplished, is it does provide you a platform. And so it's like, what kind of champion are you if you do nothing with it? Like, granted, not to minimize the title, I am very proud of accomplishing what I did as Miss Fitness Olympia, but I'm more proud that I actually have a voice. And that's not the case for a lot of people. But what am I doing with it? So, my boys now are, I have one that's a freshman in college and my other one is in high school. They're both driving. So life is a little easier where I'm not going 80 different directions. So now I want to really give back. I want to go do these speaking events because that's where I find the best connection, the most joy of having other people share their when broken stories and how they've mastered in life when they've really been handed some pretty heavy stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. Also doing some retreats this year. Obviously, again, different age groups, whether it's the youth, I do some stuff with high-level entrepreneurs. So there's a bunch of just different things. Everything with me, I always try to have fun. If there's not laughter, excitement, smiling, it's not really a fun day. So, for me, these are things I really want to push this year. And then I still always will do the coaching, the nutrition and fitness and the mindset coaching, but really kind of taking it on a bigger scale. And I'm trying to really impact and motivate and inspire people on a mass scale.
Yeah, beautiful. That's just incredible legacy that you've got going there, Whitney, and it's an ongoing one too. It's beautiful. And I always ask the guests, like, if there's one thing that you'd like changed about, health, fitness, wellness, in your case, what would that be?
Just getting people moving more. And like I said, sadly, it is such a reaction that people have, and they're not being proactive about it. And so, you look at these people who hasn't been a priority until it must be a priority. And at that point, that's where it's really sad. We always want to, feel good, have good range of motion, like just wake up with energy. But if you don't put the work into it, it's not going to happen. And as we get older, it becomes even more important. So at the end of our days, like, we work so hard to retire and then travel the world and have fun. Well, what if you work so hard, you finally retire, but you have so many injuries and it hurts to walk around and you have so many health issues. You can't fly across the country and go on the dream trip to Italy. That's living. That's what you've shot for your whole life, but now you're not healthy enough to do it. You don't have the functionality and the fitness level to walk around, and enjoy this vacation. For me, if I could change anything, I would want people to just move in whatever fashion that makes you happy. You love pickleball, or you love running marathons, you love swimming, you love shooting hoops with your friends. Whatever it is, just move. Experience what we all were given from the get-go and never take it for granted.
This is incredibly summed up there. And I totally agree with you on that. And thank you, Whitney, for being a wonderful guest, and your insights and wisdom. I really appreciate it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm sure that the listeners would have been really inspired by your message. And for those listeners, check out Win Broken, check out some other resources. You can follow Whitney on Instagram, what's the best way that you can stalk you?
Yeah, Instagram is probably the biggest platform, and it's, hopefully you love shenanigans, because I throw in a bunch of randomness in there along with some education stuff, but it's Whitney Jones _IFBB Pro.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And it's worth having Whitney perhaps as a mentor. You talked about that point earlier, and mentoring is so important. So now we'll hopefully have you back at some stage on this podcast. But again, I really appreciate you, Whitney, and your message today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, could you do me a quick favor? If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, could you please add your 5-star rating? Doing this really does support the show and gets our episodes in front of listeners just like yourself. Thanks for your support. I greatly appreciate it.